What's up everyone? Before we get started today, I just want to say that I was not impacted by the latest round of layoffs at Microsoft, but I think it's a great reminder and something that I should have been doing all along, which is updating my resume somewhat regularly. But yeah, I was just looking at the layoffs and it was a lot. Over 6,000 2 months ago and then 9,000 7 days ago. But this is the Microsoft resume that I used 3 years ago when I was applying in 2022. And I really want to update this just because this particular resume, as you can see, is pretty full stack software engineer oriented. In particular, I think I don't really want to emphasize the front end developer kind of stuff because it's not really anything I think I'm going to move back to. So let's go ahead and get started and let's use one of these templates. So basically what I'm going to do is stop the recording and then I will check back in after I trim this down. Alrighty, checking back in. I am now done with the left side, I think, for now. I was really hoping to finish this whole resume update all in one go, but this is taking way longer than I expected. So first things first, I updated this left side, or this summary on the left side, to just be data-driven engineer as opposed to hardworking and driven engineer. I just feel like it was kind of unnecessary. And then I updated the resume to have my latest work first, which I think makes sense. I also put 4 tasks, which I think are all pretty separate, but that's kind of the beauty of my current job, is that I get to work on pretty interesting projects, and I've been able to switch projects relatively easily and really learn and try out a bunch of different stuff. So the first one is this customer log upload system, which is really a C# .NET project. The next one is an ML engineering type task or data science task, which is like deploying and training ML models using MLlib, which is just like a out-of-the-box PySpark library for machine learning. This is also an ML-related task. This is more of the data engineering side of things. And then this last one is totally different as well, which is infrastructure, like scripting. As you'd imagine, for like a lot of the core functionalities in Azure, it's in .NET, so you use a lot of PowerShell, and that's what this was. Basically like Azure DevOps pipelines that call a bunch of different PowerShell scripts and whatnot to move around nodes, reset them, etc. So infrastructure maintenance tasks, I think, is kind of the best way to go about it. I also trimmed down the software engineer at IBM stuff a good bit. I think it still keeps the core things that I want to emphasize. I did do a lot of kind of technical owner stuff, which is closer to like what I learned for information science in school, more like PM related things, like working alongside the product owner and meeting with stakeholders and stuff like that. But I'm not emphasizing that just because I didn't like it as much as the heads down development work or architectural work. So that's why I'm leaving that stuff out. And then I think the education is pretty much as bare bones as you can get, but it is a little bit of a challenge since you don't want to make it too long. I really don't want it to be 2 pages. Tomorrow we'll try and knock out this right side of the resume and then go from there. Okay, it has been quite a while, but I think I have finally finished updating my resume, at least for now. I can't say it's the happiest I've ever been with any of my resumes. I'm wondering if I shot myself in the foot by opting to go with a 2-column resume. I keep reading on Reddit and I look at other senior software engineer resumes, and it seems like most people just do the kind of boring, bullet point 1-column type resume. And I do think it's easier to format, especially because using this Novo resume website, it looks really nice, but you are kind of forced to follow their template unless you want to pay extra for it. Granted, if you get a new software engineering role, you probably get paid enough that it might be worth paying for it. I don't know, but again, this is all hypothetical, so who knows. So I definitely don't want to pay for a resume service right now since I'm not actually going to be using this resume. But as you can see, I updated it to have the education on the bottom right. The reason why I did this is just because I wanted to have more space on the left. the key things that I added were these 2 bullet points here. And the reason why I added them was because I think they are kind of hot button items that hopefully would make me stand out in future, especially if I want to move into an ML engineering role, since agentic AI and leveraging LLMs and chatbots in particular are super hot. Frankly, it wasn't that difficult just because there were other teams within Microsoft that were also building RAG-based chatbots. So I could leverage their repo and use some of their existing boilerplate code. But obviously, that doesn't take away from the fact that I did do this and I did learn about, the overall process with chain of thought LLM pipelines. So basically, it is a LLM pipeline where there's a base LLM, which is using the Azure OAA service, and then we say, hey, given the user query, go get this amount of documents from the vector database that are relevant, and then return an answer. And then after that, it sends that answer to the next agent, model. Kind of depends on what vocabulary you use. And then the next ones, we prompt it and say, hey, you are supposed to look for KQL, which is basically like SQL. It's Azure Data Explorer query language, Kusto query language. And your job is to basically see if that answer has any Kusto, and if so, extract it and send it to the next model or next agent, and the next one will validate it and ensure that the syntax is good. And then after doing that, it will return the overall response to the user. So that's what these 2 bullet points are for, and I wanted to highlight those just because I think RAG is super hot. I emphasize some skills here. I think if you look at the work experience, it should be pretty obvious, as well as the education and some of the projects, but I guess maybe if someone is looking at this resume real quick and they just want to have a quick understanding of, what I feel confident advertising as my skills. This next part is the part that I feel the least confident, and that is the project and patents. The patent is cool, if I may say so myself, just because I don't think a lot of software engineers have that. So I included that, but that is completely irrelevant to my actual engineering work on a day-to-day basis. I kind of said it in another video, but anyone can get a patent if you have a good idea, but the challenge is kind of doing the work to search for prior art and have the help to actually submit it and have the patent lawyers help you out there. Obviously, the patent is owned by IBM. It's not mine, technically, but I still thought it was worth adding. The challenge with the analyzing tweet emotions one is that it is a full stack web app, which, as I said earlier, is not something that I do regularly. And frankly, I'm worse than a full-time web developer naturally, just because I don't use those skills regularly or technologies. But I left it just because with this 2-column approach, it's very obvious if you don't have enough stuff to fill out the page. So when I remove this, there's a big gap at the bottom. So I wanted it to look even. I think if I were to revisit this in a few years, or whenever I actually need to update the resume, I might just do a standard black and white resume. We'll see. This article I didn't feel as bad about, just because this is not as far off as this web app one with what I want to do. This one, I certainly don't do modeling stuff very often. This was when I was getting my master's, but the general technologies used, like Python, Pandas, are still very relevant, and I still feel quite comfortable using those technologies. And just the overall conversation of how AI can reinforce bias is something that's still relevant. So there you have it. There's my updated resume. I will post this on Google Drive just if people want to look at it, but I would love to get some critiques on it, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.